Off my feet. Oh, please, take me with you. Carry me off.
Well, I'll try. Where do you want me to carry you to?
Gilligan, let me alone.
Of the 7 people once stranded on the most famous island in American TV, only one is still alive. And even that person's life was nothing like a happy sitcom. Gilligan's Island premiered in 1964 with an idea that sounded almost too silly, a 3-hour tour turning into years stranded on an island. But what viewers did not expect was that after leaving that island, their real lives would have even more plot twists than the show. The woman who once drove American men crazy is now the last surviving main cast member, and the girl next door that millions of viewers loved ended up needing fans to help pay her hospital bills. Today we're looking back at all 7 castaways from their young days on the island to the tragedies, scandals, illnesses, and Hollywood secrets behind the sitcom lights. And stay until the end, because Gilligan's Island still hides 5 backstage stories so strange they sound like Gilligan himself came up with them. Number 1, Tina Louise as Ginger Grant.
Lots of friends and a lot of people, writing to me, and I enjoy it.
Let me start this list with Tina Louise, the only one still alive out of the 7 faces, and also the woman who once drove men back then wild. Tina Louise was born in 1934. When Gilligan's Island premiered in 1964, she was 30, and Tina did not walk into this show as an unknown face. Before Ginger Grant, she had won a Golden Globe for God's Little Acre in 1958 and had already gone through film theater and music. Ginger Grant was Hollywood trapped on an island, red hair, beautiful dresses, eyes that knew she was being watched. But that image also became Tina Louise's cage. Gilligan's Island only aired from 1964 to 1967, but reruns kept Ginger alive for decades. Every time the show came back on TV, Ginger stayed young forever, while Tina in real life had to keep proving she was not just a red-haired movie star on an island. Tina understood the value of her image very clearly. She once said Ginger was originally introduced as a mix between Lucille Ball and Marilyn Monroe. But when the character was written in a more sarcastic, colder direction, she objected and once wanted to leave the show. After that, the director was replaced, Richard Donner took over, and Ginger was pulled closer to the original image. That detail says a lot about Tina. She was not fighting Ginger. She was fighting the idea of letting other people turn Ginger into something she had not signed up for. After the original series, Tina did not return for the sequel TV movies. That made many people believe she hated Gilligan's Island. But the real story is not that simple. She did not want to be swallowed whole by the role. She kept acting in film and television, from The Stepford Wives to Dallas Kojak and The Love Boat. Ginger made her immortal, but also locked her inside a red dress she did not want to wear for the rest of her life. Tina in real life did not grow up in luxury. After her parents divorced, she lived in boarding school, spent many years away from her mother, and carried a sense of isolation from very early on. That makes the Ginger image even more interesting. Behind that confidence was a woman who had to learn how to stand on her own from childhood. The money part is what shocked a lot of fans. In 2025, Tina said the cast was paid about $1,500 per episode for 98 episodes, and that she did not receive residuals from reruns or streaming for nearly 60 years. The show came back again and again, but the people who made it did not receive the fair share viewers often imagined. Tina was once married to Les Crane, had a daughter, Caprice. Crane, and then the marriage ended in divorce. Later, she lived more quietly, wrote books, released the memoir Sunday, made an audiobook, and spent time on reading work helping children learn to read in New York. The woman who was once the red-haired dream of an entire generation of American men ultimately chose a life closer to books, children, and privacy instead of trying to cling to the old spotlight. This year, Tina Louise is 92. After Dawn Wells died in 2020, she became the last surviving main cast member of Gilligan's Island. In 2025, she made a rare appearance in New York, and just one photo was enough to pull a whole generation back to Ginger Grant. At 92, Tina Louise is not just the Ginger who remains. She is the last one on shore, looking back at an island almost all of her castmates have already left. Number 2, Bob Denver as Gilligan. And now we come to Bob Denver, the man who turned a clumsy first mate into the most famous stranded face in American TV history. Bob Denver was born in 1935. When Gilligan's Island premiered in 1964, he was 29, and he was not the kind of young actor who just happened to get lucky. Before stepping aboard the SS Minnow, Bob was already known for playing Maynard G. Krebs in The Many Loves of Dobie Gillis, meaning before America called him Gilligan, they already knew him as a comic face with charm timing and his own style. But then Gilligan appeared, and everything changed completely.
People are always asking me, Bob, how come you never take your hat off? Well, the sad truth is, I can't. After years of wearing this stupid hat, it's become permanently affixed to my...
The red shirt, the white hat, the panicked face, the awkward run, all of it turned Bob Denver into an image that could not be pulled out of American TV memory. Gilligan was the kind of character male viewers back then laughed at and felt sorry for at the same time. He was not a hero, not the smartest guy in the room, and definitely not the kind of man who made anyone feel intimidated. But he had something old family television did very well, an innocence that made people want to forgive him. Gilligan ruined almost every chance to get off the island, and yet every time viewers still wanted to see him come back. Gilligan's Island only aired from 1964 to 1967, but reruns turned it into an old room that generations kept walking back into. Bob kept returning as Gilligan in TV specials, animated versions, and reunion programs. The more he came back, the more famous he became, but the harder it was to escape. Hollywood no longer saw Bob Denver as an actor who could transform, they saw Gilligan. So did the audience. That is the strange price of classic television. When you play a role too perfectly, the public can love you so much, they do not let you become anyone else. In real life, Bob was not like the goofy guy on the island. Dream of Denver. His final wife said Bob was smart, well-read, emotional, and serious about his family. Before Dream Bob's married life was not smooth. He married several times, went through several breakups, then met Dreama when they performed together in Play It Again Sam in Florida. Not on a tropical island, not under canned laughter, but on a stage where the man the whole country called Gilligan finally had someone call him by his real name. The heaviest part of Bob's life was in his family. He and Dreama had a son, Colin, who had severe autism. Caring for a child who needs special support is not a one-season TV story. It is something that follows a family day by day, year by year, after the audience has turned off the TV and the laughter has disappeared. Bob and Dreama founded the Denver Foundation, then Little Buddy Radio, to help families with children who need special care. Then in 1998, that clean image got a crack. Bob was arrested after a package of marijuana was sent to his home in West Virginia. He received probation in the possession case. That case was later surrounded by a few side stories connected to Don Wells, but the certain part is that Bob Denver really did have legal trouble. It did not destroy his legacy, but it reminded people that the man behind Gilligan did not live inside a spotless sitcom episode. In his final years, the body that had been used to fall down, run around, and make America laugh started losing to illness. Bob had heart problems, underwent bypass surgery, and then received cancer treatment. In 2005, he died at 70 from complications related to cancer treatment. Number 3, Alan Hale Jr. as the skipper.
Are you planning to write me some more love notes?
You like blondes?
Do you need more pink stationery?
Yes, no, yes, no.
Alan Hale Jr. was not the most handsome face on Gilligan's Island, but for a lot of male viewers back then, the skipper was the most dependable man on that boat. Alan Hale Jr. was born in 1921. When Gilligan's Island premiered in 1964, he was 43. He played Jonas Grumby, captain of the SS Minnow, but America remembered him by the simpler name, the Skipper. A big man, booming voice, quick temper, always getting mad at Gilligan, but always giving you the feeling he would step up and carry the hard part when things got messy. The interesting thing is that Alan did not enter Hollywood from zero. He was born into a real movie family. His father was Alan Hale Sr., a famous actor from classic Hollywood. His mother, Gretchen Hartman, was also an actress from the silent film era. The Hale name was both an advantage and a shadow. When your father was already a major face, you did not just have to act well. You also had to prove you were not just Alan Hale's son. Before Gilligan's Island, Alan already had a long career in film and television. He had acted in series like Biff Baker USA and Casey Jones. In real life, he had also served in the U.S. Coast Guard during World War II. So, when he wore the captain's shirt on screen, that image carried a little real weight. Not the kind of man who just posed by the wheel, but the kind with disciplined size and a voice big enough to make others listen. In Gilligan's Island, the skipper was the other half of the Gilligan and Skipper pair. If Gilligan was walking trouble, then Skipper was the man who had to live with that trouble every day. He yelled, got angry, chased Gilligan, but then still called him Little Buddy. That line saved the character from becoming a bully. Skipper could be hot-headed, could be over the top, but he had heart. Middle-aged men understand that kind of guy. Not perfect, not gentle, but when needed, he still shows up. After the series ended, Alan did not try to run away from the skipper. On the contrary, he almost embraced the role. He returned in the TV movies, the animated versions, and the reunions. If Tina Louise kept her distance from Ginger, Alan Hale Jr. did the opposite. He let Skipper go with him in real life. That could be a form of typecasting, but with Alan, it did not feel clearly bitter. He understood that viewers loved the character, and he chose to answer that love. Alan's private life had far fewer scandals than many others in the cast. He married 2 times, had 4 children with his first wife, Bettina Reed Dorr, then married Naomi Grace Ingram in 1964 and stayed with her until the end of his life. His story did not have one huge scandal explosion. It felt more like an older kind of man's life work for years, have a family, have breakups, get back up, keep working. After Gilligan's Island, Alan opened Alan Hale's Lobster Barrel restaurant in Los Angeles. That detail almost sounds too perfect for him. The man who played the captain left the island and opened a seafood place, met fans, shook hands, talked with people, and let the image of Skipper live on in everyday life. He also opened Alan Hale's Quality and Leisure Travel. For Alan, Skipper was not just an old role on film. It became part of how he stepped out into life. In his final years, Alan fought thymus cancer. He was treated for about a year before passing away on January 2, 1990 in Los Angeles at 68. Number 4, Dawn Wells as Marianne Summers.
All right, let's see. Give me a command.
Okay.
There was one question that split American men into 2 sides for decades, Ginger or Marianne. And if you chose Marianne, you were talking about Dawn Wells. Dawn Wells was born in 1938 in Reno, Nevada. When Gilligan's Island premiered in 1964, she was 26. Before becoming the country girl, Marianne Summers from Kansas Dawn had been Miss Nevada in 1959 and represented Nevada at Miss America 1960. Marianne did not enter the frame the way Ginger did. She did not need glamorous dresses, movie star poses, or the whole island turning around to look at her. Marianne wore simple clothes, knew how to cook, knew how to work, and seemed more practical than everyone else. For a lot of American men who grew up with TV in the 60s and 70s, Marianne was not a distant dream. She was the kind of woman you thought you could meet in real life, bring home, and your mother would like immediately. That is why the Ginger or Marianne debate lasted so long. Ginger was Hollywood lights. Marianne was the kitchen, the backyard, the old car in the driveway, and the feeling that someone was truly on your side. Dawn Wells understood that. After Gilligan's Island, she did not run away from Marianne. She returned in TV movies like Rescue from Gilligan's Island, The Castaways on Gilligan's Island, The Harlem Globetrotters on Gilligan's Island, and even the animated Gilligan's Planet. Later, she also appeared in projects like ALF and Baywatch, with images that called back to her old role. Not only that Dawn turned Marianne into a lifestyle brand, she wrote Marianne's Gilligan's Island cookbook in 1993, then What Would Marianne Do? A Guide to Life in 2014. If Tina Louise kept her distance from Ginger, Dawn Wells did the opposite. She embraced Marianne, turning the character into a kind of life advice, kind, practical, decent, not showy. But Dawn's real life was not as spotless as the TV memory. She married talent agent Larry Rosen in 1962, divorced in 1967, and had no children. That was not a major scandal, but it reminds us that the woman viewers attached to a stable, wholesome image also had a private life that was not like a sitcom episode. In 2007, the good girl image of Marianne got a clearer crack. Dawn was arrested after marijuana was found in her car. In 2008, she pleaded guilty to reckless driving and received 6 months of probation while the drug-related charges were dropped. To be fair, this was not a major tragedy or a career collapse, but for someone who had once been America's good girl symbol, it was still a very human, very embarrassing moment and very different from the TV poster viewers kept in their heads. The late-life hardship is the part that made many fans feel sad. In 2018, a friend created a GoFundMe to help Dawn pay medical bills and IRS penalties. The number mentioned was around $194,000 to nearly $200,000. The campaign later raised more than $200,000. Think about that for a moment. The woman who had once been in the living rooms of millions of American families eventually needed those same families to help pay her medical bills. This was even harsher because many people had assumed Dawn Wells was rich from Gilligan's Island reruns. In reality, the residual story was not as pretty as viewers thought. The rumor that she made millions of dollars from rerun money was fact-checked as a misunderstanding. The show lived forever on TV, but that did not mean the actors who made it lived forever in financial safety. In her final years, the press also mentioned Dawn's seriously declining health in legal records. Then on December 30th, 2020, she died at 82 from complications related to COVID-19. For many people, that was not just news that an old actor had passed away. It was the moment Mary Ann, the girl next door of American television, was pulled into one of the saddest chapters of modern America. Number 5, Russell Johnson as the professor's...
You can't let fear rule your lives.
Oh, yes, we can.
On the island, Russell Johnson was the man everyone went to when they needed an answer. In real life, his story was a lot heavier than a coconut joke. Russell Johnson was born in 1924 in Pennsylvania. When Gilligan's Island premiered in 1964, he was 40. He played Professor Roy Hinckley, the smartest man in the group, the guy who could look at a pile of bamboo-roped coconuts and broken junk and turn it into some machine that almost sounded reasonable. For a lot of male viewers, the professor was the kind of man you could respect, not loud like Skipper, not clumsy like Gilligan, not showing off money like Mr. Howell, but always knowing what to do. The funny thing is, the professor could build almost anything on the island except the one thing the audience needed most, a real way to get the whole group home. That is one of the longest-lasting jokes of Gilligan's Island. He could make radios, generators, scientific devices out of things nobody would believe were usable. But the boat was still sitting there, broken, just like day one. Before becoming the professor, Russell Johnson was not some light sitcom actor. He had acted in noir western science fiction and appeared on many series like Alfred Hitchcock Presents The Twilight Zone and The Outer Limits. He had also appeared in This Island Earth, a sci-fi movie that later got remembered again in pop culture. In other words, before all of America remembered him as the professor on the island, Johnson had gone through many darker, more serious, more old Hollywood masculine corners. In real life, he also had a past the professor role could not fully cover. Russell Johnson was a World War II veteran. He served in the U.S. Army Air Forces. His plane was once shot down. He was badly wounded. Both ankles were broken, and the co-pilot was killed. Johnson received the Purple Heart and several other medals, so when we look back at the professor, we do not just see a man fixing a radio with coconuts. We see an actor who truly knew what fear, survival, and losing a crewman felt like, then came home to make audiences laugh. After Gilligan's Island, Johnson kept acting in film and television, but the professor became the biggest name of his life. He returned in the TV movies, the animated versions met fans, went to conventions, and later wrote the memoir Here on Gilligan's Isle. He was typecast, no doubt about it, but his story does not have the clear bitterness of someone trying to run away from a role. Johnson seemed to understand that Professor had given him a place in American TV memory that could not be taken away. His private life had more cuts than viewers usually knew. Russell Johnson was married 3 times. His second wife, Kay Cousins, died in 1980. In 1982, he married Constance Dane, who stayed with him until the end of his life. But his biggest loss was his son, David Johnson. David died in 1994 from complications related to AIDS. In those years, AIDS was still feared, stigmatized, and misunderstood a lot in America. Russell Johnson did not disappear from that story. After his son's illness and death, he helped raise money for AIDS organizations using his own name to help a community that was deeply wounded. By the mid-90s, Johnson left Hollywood and lived in Washington State with his family. It was not some loud disappearance. It felt more like a man who had gone through war-fame typecasting and loss, then chose a quieter life. On January 16, 2014, Russell Johnson died at home on Bainbridge Island, Washington, from kidney failure. He was 89. His wife said he passed peacefully in his sleep, exactly where he wanted to be at home. Number 6. Jim Backus as Thurston Howell III.
Well, you haven't got the knack of being idly rich. You see, you should do like me, just snooze and dream, dream and snooze. The pleasures are
If the professor was the brain of the island, then Thurston Howell III was the sharpest joke, a millionaire discovering that money is not much use once the boat has sunk. Jim Backus was born in 1913 in Cleveland, Ohio. When Gilligan's Island premiered in 1964, he was 51. He played Thurston Howell III, the richest man in the group, a millionaire with a wife style, a habit of giving orders, and the clear belief that the world was born to serve him. But on the island, there were no banks, no lawyers, no drivers, and nobody cared how much money he had. That is why Mr. Howell was funny. He had the most assets, but the situation stripped him of power the fastest. In the city, his money could open doors. On a deserted island, the person who knew how to start a fire was more useful than the banker. That kind of comedy is very American, very sharp, and Jim Backus understood it too well not to make Thurston Howell III both ridiculous and unforgettable. The important thing is Jim Backus did not need Gilligan's Island to be famous. Before he got to this island, he was already the voice of Mr. Magoo, one of the most famous animated characters of that era. He had played the father of James Dean's character in Rebel Without a Cause. In 1955, had worked in radio sitcoms, movies, and appeared in films like Pat and Mike Deadline, USA, and It's a Mad, 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 Mad World. In the cast, Backus was one of the people with the strongest careers when the show began. But Gilligan's Island had a very strange way of swallowing up public memory. Even though Jim Backus had many respectable roles, later generations still remembered him first as the millionaire stranded on the island. Alongside Natalie Schafer as Lovey Howell, he created an upper-class couple completely out of place. The two of them talked as if they were still at the country club, while all around them there was only sand, trees, leaves, and a broken boat. Jim Backus's private life was more stable than many of his castmates. He was married to Henny Backus for decades. They were not only husband and wife, but also writing partners, telling marriage and Hollywood stories together. But in his final years, that marriage had to face a heavy challenge, Parkinson's disease. Parkinson's slowly took away from Jim Backus the things an actor needs most. His body, his facial expression, his voice, his ability to appear in front of an audience the way he used to. In the Harlem Globetrotters on Gilligan's Island, his health had weakened so much that the role of Thurston Howell III had to be reduced. Sherwood Schwartz did not want to replace Jim with another actor because that might hurt him. So the character Thurston Howell IV was added while Jim Backus appeared only in a limited way. After Gilligan's Island, Backus kept working. He stayed connected to Mr. Magoo, appeared in film and television like Myra Breckenridge Friday, Foster Pete's Dragon, and many other guest roles. Jim Backus died on July 3, 1989 at 76 from pneumonia after years of fighting Parkinson's. He was also the first main member of the 7 castaways to pass away. Jim Backus made Thurston Howell III funny because he understood that type of rich man very clearly. The harder he tried to act like he controlled everything, the more obvious it became that he was completely powerless. And if Mr. Howell was the out-of-place millionaire on the island, then the final face was the one who turned that fancy act into a complete couple, Natalie Schafer as Lovey Howell. Number 7. Natalie Schafer as Lovey Howell.
Oh, I thought of Ginger for the diamond mine. She has such a love.
Lovey Howell walked through Gilligan's Island like a lady who would never let sand get on her dress. But Natalie Schafer in real life was even more private than her character. Natalie Schafer was born in 1900 in New Jersey. When Gilligan's Island premiered in 1964, she was 64, and she was the oldest member of the main cast. But back then, almost nobody knew her real age. For many years, Natalie's birth year was often listed as 1912. Only after she died did many people learn she was born in 1900. She was 13 years older than Jim Backus, who played her husband. Natalie's private life was also very quiet. She was married to actor Louis Calhern from 1933 to 1942 and had no children. Later, people also mentioned her longtime partner, Maurice Hill. But Natalie was not the kind of star who let her private life spill into the papers. She kept her distance, kept her style, and kept even the most painful parts to herself. She had survived breast cancer but kept it hidden from both fans and many people she knew. After Gilligan's Island, she kept returning in the TV movies and projects connected to the show. She also appeared in the Brady Bunch Three's Company the Love Boat, Chips, and many other shows. Her final role is often mentioned as the HBO movie I'm Dangerous Tonight in 1990. Natalie did not need noise to survive in the business. She just kept appearing in her own way, neat, elegant, and very hard to replace. Natalie Schafer died on April 10, 1991 in Beverly Hills at 90 from cancer. But the most beautiful part was in her final legacy. After her death, Natalie left a large amount of money, about $2 million, to the Motion Picture and Television Hospital, helping open an outpatient wing named after her. Natalie Schafer closes this list in true Lovey Howell-style private elegant, and leaving behind one last secret bigger than her role. But if you think the real lives of the 7 castaways were strange, do not leave this island yet. Because Gilligan's Island itself still has a few backstage stories as strange as a 3-hour tour turning into 60 years of memory. Before we leave this island, there are still 5 strange items floating out there. Not gold, not a treasure chest, but backstage secrets stranger than the show itself. First fact: the Professor and Mary Ann were once not named individually in the season 1 opening song. Russell Johnson and Dawn Wells were lumped together with the line "and the rest." Later, the backstage story often said Tina Louise did not want anyone listed after her name. In season 2, Bob Denver asked for it to be changed to make it fairer, and that is how the song became The Professor and Mary Ann. Second fact: Alan Hale Jr. went to his audition like a character walking out of a cowboy movie. When he got the call to Los Angeles, he was filming in Utah. He rode a horse out to the highway, hitched a ride to Las Vegas, then flew back to Los Angeles to audition with Bob Denver. Before getting stranded at sea, the skipper already had a casting journey that sounded like a cowboy catching the wrong flight. Third fact: Natalie Schafer was said to have had a clause avoiding close-ups. The reason is often tied to her real age. She was 13 years older than Jim Backus, who played her husband, and for many years, her castmates did not know that real age either. Old Hollywood could sometimes be scarier than a deserted island. Fourth fact: Dawn Wells sang so badly that most of Mary Ann's singing scenes had to be dubbed by Jackie DeShannon. The exception was the episode The Second Ginger Grant, when Mary Ann singing badly became part of the plot. Final fact: the island in the opening and ending is relocated in Kaneohe Bay off Oahu, Hawaii. If you ever dreamed of being stranded on Gilligan's Island, the good news is you do not need a shipwreck. Just go to Oahu, stop by Kaneohe, bring GPS, a power bank, and absolutely do not let Gilligan drive the boat. For more than 60 years, those 7 faces have stayed somewhere in the audience's mind. Bob Denver with the goofy white hat, Tina Louise with that unmistakable red hair, Dawn Wells as the girl next door that so many men never forgot, then Skipper, Professor Mr. and Mrs. Howell. They feel more like old neighbors than TV characters. And the strangest thing is that their real lives sometimes had even more plot twists than the show itself. War, illness, debt loss, scandal, old Hollywood secrets. All of it sat behind a sitcom people once thought was just light entertainment. Now, I want to hear from you. What is your first memory of Gilligan's Island? And are you Team Ginger or Team Mary Ann? If you like strange Hollywood stories like this, do not forget to subscribe to Weird Movie Secrets. Because believe me, there are still plenty of old movies out there hiding secrets even crazier than this island.
But there is something interesting about the shows that live the longest in our memories. The more familiar they feel, the easier it is to think we already know everything about them. But behind it, there is an entire layer of backstage stories that many viewers have never heard. So today, we are heading back to Hazard County and uncovering the most fascinating secrets behind the Dukes of Hazzard. And trust me, a few of them may make you see this series in a completely different way.